So friends, the question we continue to ask ourselves day after day is, when will the criminal justice system deal with Donald Trump the way it deals with every other defendant who is a demonstrated danger to others? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, you've probably heard by now about the self-described Trump supporter, this woman, Abigail Jo Shay, who's been arrested for making vile, vulgar threats against the judge who's presiding over Donald Trump's criminal trial, federal trial in Washington, D.C., the case in which Donald Trump committed crimes designed to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election, committed crimes in an effort to stop the peaceful transfer of power, committed crimes in an attempt to unlawfully and unconstitutionally retain the power of the presidency, committed crimes to try to rob us of the full value of our vote. Let's start with the new reporting, and let me warn you that I am not going to repeat the vile, vulgar, racist language or threats this defendant made. With that in mind, here's some of the new reporting from NBC News. Headline: Texas woman arrested and charged with threatening federal judge overseeing Trump's election case. And that article begins, a Texas woman was ordered detained Wednesday after she was arrested and charged with threatening the federal judge presiding over former President Donald Trump's election case in Washington, D.C. Abigail Jo Shay, 43, faces a charge of transmitting a threat to injure a person via interstate commerce, according to an affidavit signed by Joshua Henry, a special agent with the Federal Protective Service, part of the Department of Homeland Security. The affidavit, filed in federal court last week, alleges that Shay called U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan's chambers on August 5th and left a threatening voicemail message intended for Chutkan, who was randomly assigned to oversee Trump's criminal trial. And this defendant, Ms. Shay, prefaced her threats with the following language. If Trump doesn't get elected in 2024, in essence, she said, we're coming for you and your family. Shay also threatened Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, members of the LGBTQ community, and others. You know, friends, Judge Tanya Chutkan is an honorable, dedicated, longtime public servant. I know this firsthand because I used to try murder cases against Tanya Chutkan when she was a public defender for the District of Columbia many years ago. And yes, I've been in her courtroom more recently. Tanya Chutkan's husband, remember, this defendant threatened not only Judge Chutkan, but her family members. Well, I can tell you, her husband, I tried murder cases against him when he was a public defender in the District of Columbia. He went on to become the head of the Public Defender's Service. Now he is a recently retired judge. These are honorable, dedicated public servants. And let me just add this parenthetically, friends, because we talk a lot about law enforcement, prosecutors, and police officers being public servants. Public defenders are public servants. Make no mistake about that. They have to represent, zealously represent, honorably represent the interests of people who are accused of crime, who've been indicted, who are being tried for alleged crimes. They are public servants. And you know what? not only do they have to zealously represent the interests of their clients, they are actually a check, a safeguard against governmental overreach, right? Police misconduct, prosecutorial misconduct. I've always said defense attorneys have to do double duty, representing their client and trying to keep the government in check, making sure that police, prosecutors, the system doesn't violate the rights of the people. Yes, they are public servants, and I can tell you Judge Chutkan and her husband are some of the finest long-term public servants. They don't deserve this. You know, I know Donald Trump is being prosecuted 4 times over now, right? He's being prosecuted in federal court. He's being prosecuted by the states, and that's important. That is as it should be. But let's be clear, in some ways, it does feel like our institutions of government are failing. You know, friends, prosecutors have a weighty responsibility, a solemn responsibility to the public. Among other things, they vindicate the rights of victims, they protect victims, they protect the community, and there are a number of ways to implement those responsibilities. The most obvious is prosecutors, together with law enforcement agents, investigate crime, they indict cases, they try cases, they win convictions, and they seek to punish the offender, sometimes including prison, right? That's a way to incapacitate a wrongdoer, to keep that person from victimizing others, from endangering the community. But there's another way in the law that prosecutors are obligated to protect the victims and to protect the community. When a person is indicted and that person is a demonstrated danger to others, the law provides that that person should be detained pending trial. That's the law. Donald Trump, I would argue, is the single most dangerous pretrial defendant at this moment in our nation. There is clear and convincing evidence that Donald Trump poses a danger to others. And clear and convincing evidence is the standard, is the evidentiary burden that allows a judge to order a defendant detained pending trial. We know Donald Trump is dangerous, right? Donald Trump is the one who whipped up a group of his supporters, told them to fight like hell or they won't have a country anymore, directed them to go to the Capitol and stop the certification of the results of a presidential election. We have seen Donald Trump threaten judges, witnesses, prosecutors, and their family members. Yes, Donald Trump is a danger to the community. Clearly, convincingly. He has proven that time and time again. And yet, the institutions of government seem determined to protect him and sacrifice everyone else. You know, Donald Trump's own vice president, judges, witnesses, jurors, prosecutors, and their family members. They are all sacrificed to Donald Trump's demonstrated danger over and over again, clearly and convincingly. And it's time for that to stop. Death threats to the very judge who's presiding over Donald Trump's case that involves Donald Trump's crimes against the American people, against our very democracy. It's got to stop. You know, there's one easy vehicle right now, one lawful vehicle, one compelling vehicle that should, and I hope will, result in Donald Trump being revoked on pretrial release and detained pending trial. When Donald Trump was arraigned on his federal indictment in D.C., the magistrate judge told him directly, I know because I was there listening and furiously taking notes, Defendant Trump, the most important condition of your release is that you do not commit any crimes, federal, state, or local, while on pretrial release in this case. Do you understand? And what does Donald Trump do? I talked about this in an earlier video. He posts that he knows a witness is about to go into the grand jury in Georgia. This was a few days ago. The witness was Jeff Duncan, former lieutenant governor in Georgia, and he told that witness, don't testify. He shouldn't testify. That's witness tampering. That's a violation of the law, which in turn is a violation of his pretrial release conditions. For gosh sakes, at some point the law has to assert itself. The institutions of government have to do to Donald Trump what the institutions of government do to every other dangerous defendant every day of the week in every jurisdiction around the country. People will say, well, if you detain Donald Trump pending trial, it will, inspire his supporters to violence. How much more inspired to violence does it get than the racist, vulgar, vile threats that were leveled against the very federal judge presiding over Donald Trump's criminal case? Threats that included, if Donald Trump is not elected in 2024, how about we apply the law the way it would be applied to anybody else and we let the chips fall? Because refusing to apply the law, declining to apply the law to Donald Trump the way it applies to everyone else, has gotten us precisely where we are at this moment in time. And it's not a good place. Again, I understand he's indicted 4 times over. He will be tried, he will be convicted, and he will be imprisoned. But he should also be detained pending trial, because that's what the law demands, and that's what Donald Trump's victims of his threats deserve. Because justice matters. Hang in there, friends. Please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.